Hey there, in today's video, I am just showing you some ways to get motivated when you're feeling really uninspired. I had considered titling, and maybe I still will, this video, Unmotivated and Uninspired, because here's what happened. Last week, I lost my voice. It's still a little bit hoarse. You might notice a little bit raspy in the videos when I'm doing the demos, but didn't really make art for a week, and I came into today thinking I'm gonna make a video, and I had a plan. I was gonna rework an old painting and kind of show you the process of that. But I don't know, I just couldn't do it. So that's for a later video. So then I was like, what is it that I really wanna do? And so I had some scrap paper and I did these things, in my mind I had these things. And then I thought, you know what? Instead of just trying to make something up, why don't I just show you really what I'm doing right now, right this minute, when I am not motivated, when I have zero inspiration, and I just don't know what to do. I just want to get back into it. I want to make something, but I don't know that I have the capacity or the wherewithal to do a finished product. And by that I mean like completing something or doing like I was going to rework a painting. I didn't feel like I was there. Right? So what do we do in those situations? Because here's the thing, I still want to do some art today. I need to get back into it. I want to get going again. I want to be inspired. And yes, of course, I can get on social media or Pinterest or something and find inspiration and, oh, what is that person doing, this and that. But really what I wanted to do was get my hands dirty, and boy, did I. I got paint all over me still. And in that way, kind of propel myself forward. And so today, I'm just going to show you 3 different ways that when I'm uninspired, unmotivated, don't know what to do, what are some very simple things to do to get your hands. I always think of it like gardening, right? I love being outside and getting my hands dirty and getting them in the ground. It feels so good. This is the same thing to me, like getting my hands dirty with the paint, just doing something. And then it just propels you forward. It just moves you forward. And a lot of times I'll just say to myself, just begin. If you just begin, if you just take a pencil and make some marks, your arms and everything is activated. So today, I'm just showing you 3 simple things, ways that when I don't know what else to do, I want to do something, then this is what I do. And in that regard, a lot of it is, can be prepping for something else. It could be just getting getting the paints out. Just that action alone might take you to the next step. So I know I like to blather on, but I guess what I typically want you guys to know is like, I'm like you. Like I sometimes just am not feeling it. I just don't know where to go or what to do. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what these videos, how in the world can I actually do another video? What else do I have to say? And yet, I'll just show you really what's happening. And today is just, I guess, essentially keeping it real, showing you some ideas for ways when you just don't know what else to do. You just kind of maybe do one of these 3 ideas. The other thing I wanted to mention is in the last video, I show some collage papers that are painted collage papers. Most of you have like stacks and stacks of collage papers. I know that, but I did want to let you know, if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of painted collage papers and you would like some, I do sell bundles of those on my website, and I will have the link below in the in the text, and below I often list anything that I've mentioned, any art supply I've mentioned, and also any videos that I've mentioned. So just always take a gander there if there's a supply that I've used or something like that. Also, along that same note, I do typically link to Amazon, and I get like 1 cent for every time you go on there. But it does make a difference, and it does help support these videos in a very small, way. But if you ever consider buying something or just checking it out, going through that link, that would mean a lot to me. I don't think I've ever mentioned it, or if I have, it has been a long time ago, just those little things, because these videos are free, and anything you do in that regard, well, just by watching means a lot. And then if you ever use a link, that means a lot too. And if you ever go to my website, that means a lot too. So, wow. Okay. Here, onward, inward to how to get motivated and how to start getting inspired. Let's, without further ado, let's get started. My desk is completely cleaned off because I've been taking photos using it, so, which is unusual for me. But when I'm having a hard time getting started, sometimes I just have to grab something like this craft paper, which came in a package. And I just thought, I'll just put some black paint on it, and it doesn't really matter, so it doesn't really matter how it turns out. And because it's free, and the paint, you know, obviously I already have. So I just grabbed some black paint, black fluid acrylic, and I'm just gonna make some marks on the paint. I'm just have an old kind of, maybe this 1/2-inch flat paintbrush. Kind of has you know, like it's not perfect paintbrush, so these are not gonna be perfect marks. So I'm just gonna get started, and I'm gonna start, I think, really big. So a lot of times this paper I will use to wrap things. I can use it for collage. And so a lot of times I might even use my non-dominant hand, even though right now I'm using my right hand. But let's say I make my circles this way, maybe I make my circles this way, or, you know, maybe I will try with my non-dominant hand, and let's just see how that goes. And you might get some wonkier shapes, which is something that I actually like. So, okay, let's go on to another. Let me move this. So, like I said, it's kind of like a big revolving piece of paper. I decided not to cut it into sections, so hopefully it doesn't sound too crinkly. Let's do a smaller shape now. Actually, I'm going to do one more over here, really, really big, with my non-dominant hand. And then I'm going to go into some smaller shapes, which are just like some tick marks. This paper is not totally smooth. Obviously, it came in a package, and so you know, it's not going to be perfect. And that's not really what I'm going for right now. I'm just going to like get myself moving, get myself in motion. You could do this with, you know, any random paper. I just love the craft paper with black. Actually, I really like it with white too. So that is a color I could have chosen as well. But I would experiment. What colors do you like? And most anything will look good on this brown craft paper. Just depends on your personal preference. So I can already feel myself like, oh, this is feeling good. Getting myself going, getting myself moving. I think that's sometimes the whole key is when we're not in motion, getting ourselves in motion, right? Like, okay, so I don't know what to do, so I do nothing. Whereas this was literally laying on my floor, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to pull this up off my floor and see what happens. I'm going to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Okay, I think I'm going to do another bigger shape. What should I do? Like maybe just some lines, just some straight lines. So, and maybe I'll do them, put the paint over here, and do it with my non-dominant hand. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, because then it's maybe not going to be quite as perfect. Not that it's perfect, you know what I'm saying, but we have a tendency when we're using our dominant hand to want it to be a certain way, because our dominant hand is like, it thinks it's in control. Well, it is in control, but whereas our non-dominant hand, we're like, oh, I can barely use it, at least me, unless you're ambidextrous like my husband. You can have a tricky time using that hand. So, and I kind of like where these it isn't completely opaque. It's letting the wrinkles show through. That kind of is a cool design. And now, you know, you might be going like, what am I going to do with this paper? Well, you could rip it up, use it as collage. And like I said at the beginning, a lot of times I use my papers like this. I wrap things in them. So, okay, I have one more little section left. So let's go on to the next one. I feel like I'm just a small section, and obviously it's kind of ripped here at the end. So let's do let's see, maybe some small circles. So maybe go like this. I'm trying to make them the opposite of how if I was trying my hardest. If I was trying my best, I would do the circle like this, you know, like, again, anybody can make a circle. So I like some that are a little bit wonkier. And so instead of, for me, my natural inclination with my dominant hand would be to go to the right. So I'm taking the paintbrush and moving to the left because that does not feel as natural to me. So, and again, if you're looking for uniformity or some kind of perfect circles, and obviously, you know, you'd want to do it a little bit different than this. But I'm kind of just looking to start making marks and to get my hands in motion and to try to get my creative juices flowing. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go clear out here onto this last little section because this could be ripped off and made into something. So, okay. And I always chuckle because who can't make a circle, right? Like we all can make circles. So anybody can do this. This is like as easy as can be. Anybody can make a line. Anybody can make a crooked line like I did. Tick marks are basically, you know, kind of like circles, and then the big wonky circles at the beginning. So grab your paper that comes in your packaging and make some marks just to get yourself going. And I think you'll just find like, oh, now I'm gonna go do something else. So yeah, give it a try. Most of you know, if I have a little bit of leftover paint, I'm not just gonna wash that down the sink. I'm gonna use every last little bit of it. So I wanted to show you what I do. So I put that other paper away, and then I have an old dictionary, and this is what I would honestly do when I have paint that's left over like this. I would just come in here and until I use it all up. So I really don't, yeah. Sometimes it can stop your momentum because it's like, oh, I want to go do this other thing. But I've got a big issue around using up all the paint. And probably it's the cheapskate in me. But I feel like, oh, if I have that paint, I might as well use it. Now what you could do is tear your pages out ahead of time, which is probably what I should have done because I'm tearing this paper. So maybe I'll do that this time. But it's just a great way to use up your paint and to create collage papers. And I've just found that then I am putting much less, you know, down the drain. So, and that's very important to me. And these shapes do not need to be anything crazy. And of course I was tearing the page off ahead of time, but I didn't this time. It can just be a shape that you like. And I'm prone to kind of swirls, and I like, what else do I like? I like swirls and circles. I like tick marks, ladders, but I don't really like just ladders by themselves. I like ladders on something as a background. So what else can we do here? We could do open circles, like I did earlier. But I mean, this is just using the leftover paint. So it's not like this was not going to have anything. We weren't going to do anything with it. So let's see, what other mark can we make? Let's tear two of them off. Should have done this ahead of time. But I just all of a sudden was like, oh, I'll just show you guys what I do when I use up my paint. Okay, sometimes I might paint squares, you know, shapes, different shapes, kind of semi-paint them in. Then I can use them. I can cut the whole thing out and maybe use that as collage and as separately, because I do sometimes like to use shapes. Let's see, I've got a little bit left here, not much. Let's do some, oh, I could have done some, ooh, look, my paintbrush is starting to separate, which is kind of cool. I'm getting a different kind of effect. Sometimes I like that about a paintbrush that isn't, well, I like a lot of things about a paintbrush that isn't brand new, because then I don't have to worry about it so much. But it does, you can get these, look at that, that's crazy. You can get these weird effects. And then literally I scrape every last bit, almost every bit is out. And then I really will just go like this and color in, get all of it as much off as I can, because it gunks up around the edge there. And I know there's a name for that. And in terms of not the paint gunking up, but this little piece right here is called something. And probably most of you know what it is. And, you know, I don't know my paintbrush lingo. Okay, so there I am. I've used up every bit of paint after that. So I have just the solid one. I think you guys can see some of these. So, and that just took a few minutes. Obviously, it would take a little bit less time. If I wasn't showing you, I would have just gone for it. But this is what I do when I have a little bit of paint left and I ended up with, you know, 7 extra pages. So definitely use up your paint if you can and take the time to do that. Another thing that I do is swatch. And today I'm going to swatch this acrylic gouache that I have never used. I've had for a little while. I bought a big lot of it, which is something that I actually say to you guys, do not do this. I know. I had the best of intentions, but I thought, oh, this is great. I was on eBay and it was reasonably priced and I thought it's a great way to try it. And of course it sat. In fact, the tops are all super dusty for so long. I've not even opened them. So I was going to swatch those and show you on this paper, but then I realized they had not even been opened. So I had to go through meticulously and open each one. I made a big mess, but anyway, so that's what happens when you buy supplies and you have no idea how to use them or what to use them for. And that is the case with the gouache. And so any tips or tricks you guys have about using gouache, let me know, because I have never used it before and I'm not quite sure why I even bought it, but here it is. So it is something that I do when I'm having a hard time getting started. It's a great idea to just to go through and swatch. And so I'm going to use these. I've cut these book papers and I thought, oh, I'll write the name below them. So I thought I'd just jump right in. Hopefully I can just use one brush. I don't know, maybe that's silly. I have a rag off to the side. I have a paper towel here. I'm hoping I can rinse off. I also have some paper here that I can put the paint off onto. So what I do, right out the gate, what I liked about these paints is this little top here. I'm thinking, I wish some of the other types of paint from Liquitex comes with this little, and maybe the soft body does. Anyway, I don't have any soft body Liquitex, but anyway, I'm just gonna squirt a little bit on the top here. And this is the titanium white. And then I guess I don't need quite that much, do I? So that's why I have this over here. So just to kind of, wow, okay, yeah, next, good to know. Just need a small bit. So, okay. And then I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna probably glue these into my art journal and I will write there that it's the gouache. So I'm gonna go through these and just kind of go one by one. So like I said, because okay, now here's where the problem is. Let's get that paper out of the way. I hate to waste paint, you know how I am. But I guess I have to do a little bit of that. And I can get a bigger water if I need it. Okay, so tell me what you guys know about gouache, how you use it. I mostly use acrylic, and this is acrylic gouache. I don't know if that's any different. From, I think, is all gouache acrylic? I don't really know. So, okay, I guess I better write this down. This is neutral gray 7. Okay. And I feel like I should have set this up different because here's the thing. I'm right-handed, so I need this on my right-hand side. This water up here, maybe this up here too. And then I can bring these over here. And we'll see how this goes. Obviously, this goes on and on. I'll kind of rinse that, tap it over here. Okay. And this color is yellow oxide. And this lot that I bought, obviously, it didn't have every color. And I just bought it for the sake of trying the paint. Obviously, if I'd gone into the store, I would have just probably picked a few, this yellow oxide being one of them. Okay, that's a lovely color. And we'll just wipe that off over here, put that in there. Yellow oxide. I think I mentioned in one of my videos that the oxide family are a series of paint colors that I love. Okay, so this next color is in the red family of these next three, and they are not colors that I typically am drawn to, but this one is Scarlet. Better get all that off or it's going to be a coral by the time I'm done with it. But again, like I've mentioned before, if you mix these, any color with like a raw umber or even a gray or a slight little bit of black, you can usually get a richer and deeper color. I don't typically use straight out of the tube or out of the bottle like this, but it is good to, when you're swatching, obviously, then you know what you're dealing with. So, okay, I don't know if it makes sense to me. Okay, this bottle doesn't want to pop the top off. I don't know if it makes sense to speed this up. I don't know how, will this be boring to listen to, me jabber on? But all I'm going to say, this color is primary red. What my whole point around doing these things, or because I was having a hard time getting started, I'm not feeling super motivated, but it doesn't take much to kind of change your whole mindset. And getting your paintbrush and the paints out, it can, even if all you're doing is swatching, it can start you on another path and get you going in a way that you think, oh, I just can't get motivated. And yeah, that's a good way to get started, because you might go, oh, I really want to use that color. I want to try that in something. And this color is quinacridone magenta. And I've used this in, now I'm not putting very much on, but that's okay. Kind of get the gist of it. I don't need a lot of paint on here. I've used this in and mixed with white just to tone it down to get a pink, and added a little bit of raw umber, and you get this kind of a beautiful pinkish color. So even though I don't use it a lot, I have used it in the other Liquitex colors. Okay, second row, we're going to start with the ultramarine blue red shade. And like I mentioned, I think what I'll do is speed this up, and if there's anything I have to say, I will slow it down, but probably just wanting to show you what I got going here. Oh, I did want to mention before I do that, that I have not gessoed ultramarine blue. I have not gessoed this paper. here they are all swatched out, and I love it so much. I can't wait to put them into my art journal and actually start exploring and doing some things with the gouache paint, because I do like the properties. It does appear that it's a little bit more transparent than maybe the typical just regular acrylic paint might be. But again, any comments or suggestions you have about using it, I would love to hear. And this is just helping me, one, use an art supply that I've had that I have not even touched or opened, and which is great, because again, I just haven't felt like, you know, or I haven't had the inspiration that I've needed. But this right here, just swatching something, definitely inspires me to be motivated, to get started with something, and to start making some art. And believe me, I feel like these are kind of worthy of, you know, being in my art journal, and they are little pieces of art in and of themselves. Another thing that helps me get motivated and inspired is just to create some backgrounds. And often I do that by, you know, painting random colors, but other times I do it by just putting collage papers down. And I have so many collage papers, and some of them I just don't, I know I'm not gonna ever use, and so there'd be a great background. Another thing I often do is use book pages that have no paint on them. But for today's purposes, I'm just gonna use the painted papers, and it doesn't really matter. It can be, you know, they could be the plain, because I'm doing it more for texture, and then maybe a little bit will pop through after I do whatever painting or mark making thing that I do on top of it. Typically, I will paint over it, and then some of that elements will show through, particularly the texture, which is the part that I'm typically most interested in. So I'm just going to show you that process. I'm just going to randomly put down papers. I'm going to use, today instead of matte medium, I'm going to use this matte gel because I have this huge amount of it. And a lot of times I just use a palette knife or a catalyst wedge to help smooth it out so that I don't have any air bubbles. But I also grabbed an old brush, and I typically use my oldest brush for this because the gluing material just kind of gets it all gunked up. So, but anyway, I think I'm going to start with the palette knife, and we'll see how that goes. So we're going to just get started with that. I'm going to move these off to the side, grab a few. All right, I have a handful of papers. I have the rest off to the side, so if I need to grab those, I can. And typically what I do, instead of just putting the whole piece down, because I am looking for the texture on them, because each edge, this is where the texture is going to come in. Unless this is really heavily painted, the texture is going to be along the edges and the ridges of this. So typically I will at least, this is a very small paper, so I will at least cut them in half, and I try to do it in different directions. So sometimes it'll be this direction, sometimes it'll be in half like this one was, and if it's too big, then I rip it again. This one maybe like this, and maybe, you know, so again, it's just kind of random. I'm not looking for anything in particular, but that just gives me a stack. And this paint is a little bit more textured. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. So I have a little stash here. Let's do one more. And we'll get started here. And then I'll just keep ripping and tearing as we go. I'm just curious, I guess, as I get started here, let's get these pages leveled out. Yeah, when you guys are having a hard time getting started, what are some things that you do that get you motivated and back in the studio? Making art or just being your best creative self. Sometimes I feel like these little things can really make a difference. And a lot of times when I'm doing this, I like it to butt up against the edge. I know a lot of people, especially if you work in junk journals, and I don't actually have a junk journal. I like the idea of it, just never made one. So maybe that's something I next have to do. So I like to get this edge butted up against one of the edges. So like, yeah, like that. So just so so everything is covered. I like it all to be covered. So I might in a way, and because I'm not worried about, I'm not trying to do this for any kind of compositional fact. I'm just trying to get it all covered, and I'm trying to just create a background for the next time when I'm working on something, then it's all ready to go. And so like this one has two edges, and I'm just gonna put the gel medium over the top and underneath and over. So, and even though it looks like I'm trying to choose papers I haven't used, I don't know why it matters, because probably what's going to happen is I will go through here and cover the whole thing with some kind of, you know, white or cream paint and then get started. But you know, you never know. Some of these colors may pop through. And so it's kind of fun just because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know where this, you know, might take you. So, and I feel like it's just a good use of these papers. Okay, so I don't know why I don't know why I'm worried about what I'm using. A lot of times, like if I'm using book papers and things like that, a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I want to use different text next to different things so that that the same text isn't showing through on each thing, if that makes any sense. So let's put this one over here. This is actually a very large art journal, like 11 by 14. So when you, oops, well, that's okay. I don't mind that. But if it gets too gunked up in here, that's glue can cause the pages not to turn so good. So it's 11 high by, it's 14 high by 11 wide. So when it's opened up, it's still obviously 14 high, but it's like 22 wide. So it's a pretty big art journal. It's not as big. I have this really massive one that's a moleskin, and it is massive. It's pretty cool. And when I work in it, I feel like I'm working on a canvas almost because it's that big. It's just, I mean, well, not, you know, obviously canvases can be as small as can be, but when you work on something that large, you think, it feels like, oh, you should be on a canvas. Okay, so I got plenty of this down, but let's, again, I like to do the edges. I like to get those edges in, even though, like I said, it doesn't really matter. But I like, oops, I'm gonna put this one at the top. See, we all have our ways, right? Like you think, oh, I'm not particular, but then again, maybe I am particular. I like it to be a certain way. And are you guys big fans of, you know, doing this kind of thing? Do you like a lot of texture? Some people really don't. And I know, like, if you're a watercolor person, you probably don't work on texture because I don't think really watercolor goes on a lot of texture. But then I could be wrong, you know? So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Does watercolor, can you put watercolor over a lot of texture? I think that's why I like Liquitex acrylic so much, because if I make a mistake, I don't know if there's mistakes, you know what I'm saying, that I can just keep painting my way out of it. Like I can just keep painting and painting, and eventually I can get where I want to go. Whereas I feel like with watercolor, it's such a, you know, you got one shot to make it right. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like. So you guys that use watercolors, you got to correct me and tell me, oh no, it's easy, it's great. I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, it looks so hard. It looks like you got to get it right the first time. So tell me if I'm right on that regard. Okay, so like you can see, this is just a big jumbled mess, but it is going to be a cool background for something down the road. And I'm going to be so happy because I'll have this down, it'll be dry, and it won't be like, oh my gosh, I need a substrate, or I want something with a lot of texture and I don't have anything. So oftentimes that's the case, and it's like, oh, I put this all down and then I gotta wait around for it to dry. And that's a pain, you know, because patience, that's always hard, waiting for stuff to dry. And of course you can use a heat tool, but a lot of times I just like to let things dry naturally if I can. It's not always possible, but I like that better than using a heat tool, because I feel like sometimes when you use that, it doesn't dry, if this makes any sense, underneath. It dries like the surface, and I feel like, is it dry underneath? Let me make that a little shorter. Sometimes the paint bubbles up. You know, there's just all kinds of stuff. So But again, that's the least of our problems, right? It's just like, it's just go make something and see what happens. Okay. Now, this piece has like something behind it. It's kind of thick. So I'm gonna hold off on that one. Here's one. And I need kind of smallish pieces. So let's do one right here. I kind of like that paper actually. That's cool. Yeah, this palette knife it's handy because it not only can you put the gel medium on with it. I mean, obviously, if you're using matte medium, you probably need to use a brush, but you can push it down so that you get all the air bubbles out at the same time as you're putting on the medium. Okay, let's see, what do we have here? We have something right here. I like every bit to be covered. Okay, that side's done. Okay, and this one has a little bit of pockets of things peeking through. So right here's one. Oh, there's a little pocket right there. Let's do that. Every little bit gets covered. And I'm like, you guys probably saw that on camera. You're like, oh, there's that little piece over there. Don't forget it. I know when I'm watching videos, a lot of times it's like, you notice things that the person who's making the art doesn't necessarily notice. You know, you're kind of so busy in the process that you don't notice, you know, little things, little pieces of things that you missed. And again, I think I've mentioned this a whole bazillion times. When you're making art on camera, it's, you know, it can be a little intimidating, and you're not probably as natural as you would be if you were just by yourself making art. Okay, I think those are covered. So this is another way that I get motivated and get inspired is, okay, my gosh. And I guess, well, I wanted to, it's not quite dry, but what I would do now is come in with some cream, like a Titan Buff or a white, and just kind of lightly put over the top. It's just like, should I show you real quick? Yeah, maybe let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, I'm gonna grab, even though the heavy body is probably not what I would grab, but let's just do it. It doesn't matter if it's not dry. And so it unifies it all. And you can do it as thick or thin as you want, but then it gives you this, a little bit of a background, a place to start. And you don't, you know, it's not about all the 1,000 million colors underneath. Although it could be if that was your thing, but there you go. Like, now it's kind of all unified, and if I wanted to come in and get going with it, obviously you wouldn't have to do this, but this is kind of my process. And although sometimes with my portraits, I do like to start on this crazy of a background and then, you know, cut in later around the outside of the person or the face or the body. But a lot of times I'm mostly interested in this being, you know, like a background. So, okay. So this is ready. This is ready for me to start making art on. So, okay, those are some ways that I have found that help me get motivated and inspired when, wow, it's hard after just even a week of no art making. So I hope this helps you in those times when you just got to get back in. You're not inspired necessarily, but you just want to grab something and do something very simple. This is another very simple way to do something that you don't have to worry about the end result, but it's a way to get started. So anyway, thanks again. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.